Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam, Kenny, and Lady Cao Feng, and we're going to talk about New Dragon Inn, a 1992 film directed by Raymond Lee, produced by Choi Hark, that stars Bridget Lin, Tony Leung Ka-fai, Maggie Chung, and Donnie Yen. This film is sort of a remake of the classic King Hu movie. In this one, Eastern Depot's chief eunuch Chow executes Minister Yu Chuan, then sends Yu's children to Dragon Gate Pass as bait to capture the valiant Zhu Huaiyan. So that's the really sort of quick version of the story. It's about an hour and 30 minutes. It's a lot faster, I think, than the original King Hu movie, but it covers a lot of similar material. It's basically set at an inn, sort of in a very desertous region where the officials are trying to capture people who are resistant to Eastern Depot's rule. So why don't we start out with everybody's opinions? What does everybody think of this movie?
I enjoyed the movie, but I don't think it was as good as the original. I guess I like the original and this one with different things. Like the first one did sort of the tension really well, whereas here there's a lot more of the sort of character development and the relationships between the characters that were done much better. So in a sense, I think it's a very different movie. But I think they're both very good. It's just I would prefer the first one more.
I also enjoyed the movie. I like the actresses who star in the movie really well. So this was, I thought, a really good movie for the month of March. And I also liked the first one better for the tension. This one had a little bit of more comedy, I guess, in it than I was expecting, it with some of the wordplay and things. But I liked both of them.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with Kenny. The first one had more dramatic weight to it. I mean, this one was more exciting. It had more of a thrill to it. It did have like emotional impact. I don't want to say it didn't, but overall the first one had more tension. I felt like the ending had more weight to it as well too in the original. But this is still a very good movie in its own right. It's got a lot of kind of intrigue between the characters. The interplay is really great. The performances. So I like both, but they are very different movies.
Yeah, they're difficult to compare to each other. I think I actually prefer this one, believe it or not. I know I normally rave about King Hu, and I like the original Dragon Inn, but this one I feel it's a little faster, so I just have more fun watching it again and again. But but I think that it's a very different movie. So they are quite difficult to sort of line up together. What would you? I mean, I think you guys kind of hit on the sort of the essential difference. The first one definitely really amps up the tension between the characters, and it builds till you can't take it anymore, and then action just sort of flares up, and then it's back to calm, and then tension builds up again. And this one is kind of all over the map in terms of emotions. It really kind of you have a lot of moments of tension throughout the movie, but you also have a lot of comedy, a lot of playfulness, a lot of action, and I'd say the action is longer in this one. You tend to get action sequences that are just kind of people bouncing from area to area, and the action in the King Hu movie is a little bit more is a little bit more plotted out through and thread through the story. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on comparing the original to the current version?
I'll back you up on saying that this one is more fun to watch. I mean, I felt like after watching the first one, I really enjoyed it, had a lot of dramatic. But if I were to rewatch just on a random night, go, I'm just going to put a movie on this. This would be the one just to kind of watch just as a rewatch to kind of kill an evening, I would say.
And I think, just comparing sort of the action sequences between the two movies, like, obviously the first one was a much older movie, and there's some sort of quirky things with people jumping off buildings instead of up buildings and reversing the sequences and stuff like that. But in this movie, I feel like it's there's a lot of jumping around that doesn't really seem to add much to anything. Like all the acrobatics seems to be there just for the sake of adding flair to the movie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it just seems to be quite a very dizzy. Some of the fight scenes are quite dizzying, just because there's just people flipping around, and it's not really a spoiler, but the fight scene in the sandstorm was kind of like, I'm not really sure what's going on here. I mean, I guess it's useful, it's got the intended effect of like showing that it was a chaotic fight scene and stuff like that, but all the flipping around and people's robes furling all over the place didn't really help.
Well, it's definitely a flying swordsman type movie. I'm sorry, Lady Cao Feng, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, I think that was kind of typical in the 90s movies. They had a lot more flair, because they could, with the progression of the film industry came about. So it's just more typical, I think, of 90s movies to have that flair and jumping around and clothes flying and kind of trying to make it look graceful and almost like dancing, with the way the clothes kind of flow in the movies, very artistic kind of. So, but yeah, it did get a little bit confusing in that sandstorm scene.
Yeah, I have to admit, I really like the sort of this style of choreography where people are just spinning through the air, and it does get confusing though. I will certainly acknowledge that. And it also seems like it's coming out of that era of the 80s when they had so much really kinetic stunt work, and so all of these movies there's just people just constantly falling on the ground, constantly spinning through. Like there's one scene where there's really no action taking place. She's just in the lap of the hero, and simply to get out of his lap, she twirls in the air like an acrobat, like horizontally, like in an impossible. Apparently, by the way, the way they do that apparently is they wrap people up in some kind of wire or cord and pull and.
Well, Jade was definitely the character with the most gratuitous use of like acrobatic moves in scenes, like scenes that weren't particularly fight scenes. She'd still be jumping around, which I kind of liked, but it was unusual.
Well, in another way, what they're doing is they can use it to make a really strong point. Like instead of pushing somebody aside and shouting at them, you can flip through the air and land in a dramatic pose, and you get like you get a similar point across. But yeah. So I don't know. What did everybody think of the story, of the overall story of the movie?
I mean, if you had to summarize the plot of the movie, it's in like a sentence or less, or it would be like some people go to an inn and shit happens, and then they all leave the inn, right?
And they mostly all kill each other, actually.
Yeah, not very many people leave this inn alive.
It's definitely got a Western vibe to it, where just a bunch.
Yeah.
What I like about the Dragon Gate series is what it sort of becomes is, somebody shows up at an inn and there's stuff going on, and then somebody else shows up, and then other, people just keep showing up and adding to the drama and the tension. And in this one, you have the, it's sort of similar to the original, where the eunuch is sort of like, sort of constantly on his way, marching there as all the stuff is unfolding at the inn itself. But yeah, I think it's a hard story to really, because you wanted to. It's sort of like my description at the beginning, where I said it's about the war minister who's executed, and then his children get sent to the frontier. But but there's so much that happens at the inn, and all these little things like the wedding and all this stuff that kind of comes out of nowhere and just sort of happens, and it's difficult to really, draw a straight line with the plot. But yeah, so I don't know, getting into the individual scenes, let's start with the ending. And by the ending, I mean the final stand. So we wait like Donnie Yen plays the eunuch Chow, and you see him at the beginning, but the rest of the movie, he's just basically traveling to the inn. And in the final sequence, there's this great fight in the desert between him, Jade, Mo Yan, and Huayan, and it ends in this standoff where they're either standing there so long, or the winds are rushing by so furiously that the sand just piles up around them until they're all chest deep in the sand. And Chow charges forward. Huayan leaps into the air, and Mo Yan, who's the Bridget Lin character, gets stabbed in the chest, and then she starts sinking under the sand, and we have this final battle, and Chow wounds everybody. The heroes are all dropped to the ground, but then Dao, this chef from the kitchen of the inn, has been hiding under the sand, and he leaps up and he carves up Chow's leg and arm, and all that's left are just these bony skeletal limbs, and in the confusion, Huayan is able to grab Mo Yan's sword and kill Chow. So that's the basic overview of what happened. What do people think of that sequence?
That's just the worst way to die, in my opinion. I mean, you're carved up by this puny little chef that basically leads to your end, and you're supposed to be this great eunuch who, is so powerful, and your martial arts is supposed to be so much better than everybody else's, but you get carved up by this puny little chef who's hiding in the sand, and then you're stabbed and you're dead. So I don't know. It was kind of a letdown for me in a way.
Because it came out of left field, or because it just felt like did it feel cheap, or what's
it did feel cheap. To me, I just think it should have been more of a battle, I guess, of the stronger characters and not this little wimpy one coming in and taking him down. So I kind of felt a little cheated, but
I kind of felt like they set it up, because they had the scene where the guys were hiding, watching the guy chopping up meat and stuff, and they were kind of made a point of, "Whoa, this guy is really scary." They kind of did foreshadow it earlier in the movie, and I don't know. I mean, him being able to carve people up is on one level kind of ridiculous, but just just I don't know. I enjoyed it. I kind of liked his butcher skills being this combat technique. That it worked for me.
It was definitely a bit of a sort of comedic end there.
It was.
Because you just think like sort of those crappy piranha movies, and people were like spit their hands in water and they lift it out. Like, oh, it's all bone, and they're all screaming.
Yeah, and also to go to Lady Cao Feng's point, I think to an extent, I enjoyed it. It may be part of why the movie lacked the dramatic weight of the previous version. I mean, because like I said, I kind of see your point that this movie didn't have the same weight as the other one, and so it's an enjoyable ending. But I don't know, it's complicated.
So
I think I just would have preferred that it had been a final one-on-one battle between the hero and the villain, and just those two going at it to the death. And even if they both died, I don't think it would have mattered. But I think he should have brought the eunuch down, in my opinion. But that's just very typical.
Well, and I think part of the point is that the eunuch would have defeated them both, but for that odd set of circumstances that resulted in Dao sort of leaping from the sand, because it kind of harkens back to the conversation he has with her earlier in the movie after she's been wounded by the arrow, and he says, like, we used to be able to count on escaping, and I think it might have been we'll get into the difference of subtitle versions, so I might be going by the Tai Seng version, but we used to be able to count on escaping and getting out alive together, but now the world has changed and we can't necessarily count on that. So I think it kind of completes that statement by saying basically he would have died with her, but Dao was just happened to be there and killed him. But the thing I like about it is the thing Adam was saying is that they not only do we have that scene where they sort of build up to it by showing you carving the guy up that's hanging upside down. There's also the goat scene where he carves up the goat when they're fighting over the roasted goat. And there's a bunch of scenes of him in the kitchen with. I mean, he's just there's so many scenes showing this character playing with knives, and it seems kind of, you know, unimportant until the very end of the movie. And he's also the most goofy. Like, everybody kind of writes him off as this silly sort of, you know, like a barbaric type character. I think in most of the versions that I saw, it sounded like they were having him speak gibberish most of the time. He wasn't even really speaking like real words, at least in the dub version. And so I think he just, you know, he's this character that just, your view of him totally changes. And also it's an inn that feeds people human meat, and he's the guy that's in charge of cutting up the body. So they take this character who's like, would be a killer in any other movie and a bad guy, and in the end he's the one who defeats the eunuch. So I don't know, it's just it was an interesting twist. But what I really like about the scene is how Donnie Yen doesn't even realize that his limbs have been skinned. Because he's boasting about his martial prowess and telling them they're all going to die, and he thinks that, like, he's been attacked by Dao, and he thinks that he's fended him off, and then he looks over and he sees that his hand is just this bone, and he can't even stand up on his leg, and it collapses and crunches under his own weight, and it just sort of like he looks like a monster at that point. And, you know, he's like, his hair is all wild and, you know, half gray and black, and he's got a bony limb, and his leg just fell off, and he just looks like it. He's sort of revealed for the monster that he's supposed to be in the movie. So I thought it was a cool visual depiction of the character's spirit. You know, and it's a very interesting contrast from the other eunuch in the original movie, who was, you know, this invincible force that you know, the only thing that really undermined him was asthma, and so yeah. So
I think if you compare like the sort of the endings for this one and the old one, like I can sort of see where Lady Cao Feng's coming from, in that it doesn't feel like there's much payoff. Like, they sort of built him up, and then he injures everyone, and then he's killed in the as we said, like, a pretty goofy way. Whereas in the other one, you've got all he's the protagonist working together, figuring out he has a weakness, and like trying to use it against him. And it's like it felt like a well-earned victory by the end of it. Whereas here, I mean, despite all the foreshadowing, there was no hint that he was hiding under the sand for that. Like, for all we know, like, he was supposed to be taking the kids out of the past, right? And he just shows up out of nowhere to finish off the big bad, and it does definitely feel like a bit of a Deus Ex Machina there.
Yeah, the only hint we might have, and this depends on how he got there, is that he was in charge of kind of navigating people through the tunnels, and then we know there's a tunnel system. So if that area was part of the tunnel system, I suppose that's but it's very. It's reaching. So yeah, I think it's not. It definitely isn't. In the first movie, the victory feels earned. It feels earned to a large degree, because people really get hurt in the process, and it's just this battle of attrition. And here, people get hurt, and then they're about to die, and then Dao shows up and kind of saves the day. So
since you brought the tunnel system up, though, I just have to say that for all the time they spent getting access to the tunnels, it's like then they pop up like 10 feet behind the bad guys. They're like, look, there they are, and they chase them. That was a little bit of a letdown. I'm like, they might as well just run out the front door.
Yeah, you were expecting something a little more grand than the.
Yeah.
I guess it must just be really hard to build tunnels under the desert like that.
I've lived in a desert. I know it's not the ideal tunneling environment, but still.
But yeah, and then at the end of that scene, and there is sort of something we should probably talk about before we get into some of the other topics, is that there is this love story between Mo Yan and Huayan, and a sort of love triangle with Jade in the mix. And in this final scene, Mo Yan dies, or is at least drawn into the sand, and then after they've killed the eunuch, we hear the flute playing, and the wind is blowing the song through the flute, which I don't know, I kind of like. I like that. I barely noticed it the first time I watched it, but the more I watch the film, it's kind of a nice cap on that character, and kind of goes back to the scene on the camel where she's playing the flute as she's traveling to the inn. But all right. So moving to the next scene that I think we have to talk about is there's a great scene that's really famous where Maggie Cheung and Bridget Lin are dueling, but they're fighting over articles of clothing. So they're not fighting with swords or weaponry. They're battling with words, and they're battling by sort of taking pieces of clothing from each other, and it ends with Mo Yan, the Bridget Lin character, pulling off Jade's clothes, and then Jade leaps up to the roof and starts singing a song really loudly, and then that's when Zhu Huan arrives. So I don't know, what were people's thoughts on this scene?
I enjoyed the scene of the two women using their words and not their fists against each other. You kind of get the sense that this relationship is going to come back for some reason. They kind of already don't like each other, but you kind of get the sense that something else is going to come in to play that's not going to make them like each other, which ends up being a man eventually. But I liked the flow of the clothes and how they were fighting each other for the clothes and trying to get clothes off, trying to get clothes on. And I just thought it was really cool that there's hidden meaning with the words and the clothes play. And then Jade ends up, like you said, pretty much naked on the roof and ends up having to wear the banner of the inn as a very good-looking man shows up. But yeah.
And we don't know if she's charmed by his features, or by the fact that his face matches a wanted poster with a high price tag on it. Because when she sees him, her face lights up, and you're never quite sure until toward the end of the movie if she's motivated by the desire for the gold, or for the desire to have him as a as a romantic interest.
I think it went from interest in the money from the wanted poster, because she was very interested in the money, but I think as she got to know him and saw that he was with what was the other character's name? The other heroine.
Mo Yan.
Mo Yan, yes. When she realized that those two were kind of together, then it became more, I think, of her scheming to get in between them. And because he did use flowery words and everything, she probably was turning towards being interested in him, and she liked the challenge, I believe. I think she liked the challenge of being in a competition with Mulan. So I think money started the infatuation, and then it just built.
Yeah, I'd say at the beginning, both. I mean, I think in the first scene, before she got to know him, she would have been perfectly happy, being involved with him for a night and then turning him in. That would have been like the ideal situation in her head when she first met him. But it obviously got more complicated as it went on.
Yeah, I do like the bathtub scene. Like Lady Cao Feng mentioned, like they're both sort of. It is a lot of foreshadowing, and they're both sort of fighting over the same piece of clothing, and they're all just ripping it away from each other. Until the end of the movie, thinking back, and you start thinking back on that scene, it doesn't really have much weight to it. But when you can just sort of treat it as a mildly gratuitous fight scene with some lovely ladies. But after the movie ends and you just think back on the events of the movie, you can sort of see that there is maybe we're looking into it too much, but it definitely seems like a bit of a foreshadowing in that they are both going to be fighting for the same man, and that not everyone's going to end up with what they want.
And one of the things I like about this scene is how when Mo Yan basically wins the fight by taking off her clothes and she has to leap up into the top of the building, she immediately kind of takes the victory away by just starting to sing a song as loudly as possible. And the song she's singing goes, and I don't know if this is accurate, but in the subtitles, it was something to the effect of, on the 15th of August, the temple door opens, and many candles, red candle, white candle, a girl like me can't handle them all at once. And obviously there's a lot of double entendres throughout the whole movie, and that's like a really good example of the kind of double entendre that you see there.
Just for the record, like August the 15th or whatever is slang for a butt, shall we say?
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. I thought it was like an important festival day or something.
Because it's the Mid-Autumn Festival and the moon is round.
Oh, okay. All right. So, okay, interesting.
It's a full moon, so.
Okay. So, and that's one of those things that like just gets a lot. Like the subtitles cannot carry the weight of all that meaning, so it gets lost. But it's that's very interesting. That definitely adds a lot more to the scene than before.
I agree with you though. It's like she totally takes away the victory. It's like, yeah, I don't care anyway. I don't have this ridiculous modesty that you have. So
And in the version that you sent us via YouTube, the song that she's singing is about a cold woman holding on to her virginity. Yeah, which was even, well, I wouldn't say strange, but I don't know.
The dub version is the singing in the dub version is pretty bad. Like in this one, it sounds like real singing, and in the dub version, it sounds like somebody just kind of half making up a song as they go, and it just doesn't work quite as well. But yeah, so I don't know. But the next scene that I think is important is the wedding scene, which is kind of around, I think that's like the middle of the movie, really. And in this scene, there's this whole ongoing thing where Zhu Huaiyan and the rebels, they're trying to help get the children to the border. In order to do that, they need access to these tunnels that are under the inn. And so they're trying to find them, and they can't. And so he has to go through Jade in order to get to the tunnels. And the tunnels, they become another double entendre and all this. But basically, when he's forced to marry her at the inn, and then he's going to try to use that as an opportunity to get information on the tunnels, and it becomes this really big dramatic scene, actually, because he's not supposed to really be marrying her. He's supposed to be marrying her in order to get the information on the tunnels, but there's a lot of doubt over whether he's maybe just been seduced by her and is going to make the most of the wedding night. And so there's this, so when everybody is outside of the bridal chamber, they don't really know what's going on in there, and the Mo Yan character is sort of dealing with all, he and Mo Yan are a couple, and so she's sort of dealing with the weight of the possibility of him sleeping with Jade. And so I don't know, it's an interesting scene. Like all the characters kind of have really interesting moments in it. Even Cha, the eunuch, who kind of officiates the wedding because he's the elder in the room, and just the way that he sort of is able to put on a smile even though he's planning to kill Huaiyan and officiate his wedding is something that just always amuses me. But what do people think of this scene? It's a very complicated scene, and it's kind of hard to describe all of the components to it. But what did you guys find striking?
I thought it was interesting that they were going to have a drinking contest to kind of celebrate the whole thing. I guess each camp trying to get the other one drunk so that they wouldn't be able to fight each other. And, one would actually kill the other group. But poor Muyan is actually drowning her sorrow in the wine, but she's not actually getting drunk, and it's pretty interesting. I thought the whole scene.
Yeah, they big background there, and what was actually going on, and what the sort of the Dongfang people were trying to do. Is like, this is like a weird tradition at Chinese weddings where you're supposed to storm the bridal chambers. I don't know why. I think it's just sort of to prank the newlyweds or whatever. You're supposed to like run in and embarrass them briefly before running back out. And they were trying to use that as a sort of pretext to confirm that Wyan was still on the premises and not escaping. And it's kind of ironic there that Mo Yan, despite obviously wanting to go and stop the newlyweds herself, was forced instead to be the guardian to stop them from getting to the chamber so that their plan can proceed smoothly. And yeah, it adds a bit of weight there to the fact that she was crying as she was drinking this wine because her heart's breaking at the thought that that someone she loves is sleeping with another woman like not more than 3 meters away from her, basically.
And
yeah, this is definitely the part of the movie where it has some real emotional weight to it. I mean, the movie, I was enjoying the movie up to this point, but it builds on the previous rivalry that was set up in the last scene we talked about, but it kind of pays off here. And and I mean and of course we have it kicked in for me at the point where we see Mo Yan seeing the flute in Jade's hand there, where I'm like, oh, there's real stakes going on here. It really kind of landed at that point.
Yeah,
it was his her token of love that she gave to him. He now has given to someone else.
Yeah,
but she doesn't know that that Jade basically really took it.
Yeah.
But
It. And that scene with Bridget Lynn, I think even like not when she's drinking the wine, but right after when she puts it down and looks at the camera, I thought that was a very good performance on her part. But yeah, there's the one thing to remember about her character too is that she made a vow at the very beginning of the movie before the Buddha statue to rescue the children, and so she's still, I think, committed to that vow too. So she's kind of regardless of what's going on in that chamber, she knows she has to keep going forward with the plan. And it's a very interesting moment for the character. And also it's a very fun scene with Maggie Chung and Tony Leung where she's trying to seduce him. She's kind of like she's trying to seduce him by way of kung fu, kind of. And she's also having this ongoing interaction with Cha, who has these arrangement with her where she's supposed to keep him there so that he can capture him, and he's kind of interrupting and pulling her aside and saying, hey, do we still have a deal? And she's upping her price, and then she's going back in, and it's really hard to keep track of like what everybody's doing and what their motivation is, and it's very. It's one of them. It's the thing that's sort of the mystery of the whole movie is like what does each character really want here? So I don't know. I think it's a great scene, and it's so ornamental. There's just so many little things going on that it's hard to keep track of everything. But yeah, so moving on to the next scene, which is the last scene we're going to talk about in detail, is the scene where General Chin Hu brings his wanted poster into the room, and a lot of hilarity ensues. But the important thing that kind of happens here is we have this standoff where the rebels come down the stairs, and the officials from Eastern Depot are seated at their tables, and everybody's kind of glaring at each other, and swords are about to be drawn. And it's like this situation where fighting is about to take place. And then that's when General Chin Hu bursts into the room, and he has no idea that there's this standoff going on between these two sides. And the Jade character is trying to indicate that to him, and she's just not catching on. And then the officials who are masquerading as traitors draw their swords, and he's like, hey, why does everybody have weapons? And then he takes out the wanted poster, and he starts inspecting Huayan, thinking that he matches the description, but the rebels have obtained the papers of the officials, and so they convince him that they're the ones from Eastern Depot, and Jade plants a little mole on the wanted poster and then points at one of Cha's subordinates and says, that's the guy that you want. and he starts going after him until they bribe him, and they and then he agrees to let them go. So I don't know. What do people think of that scene? Any thoughts on the General Chin Hu character in this one?
I like the general's character, and like he was the sort of definition of corrupt official, I think, as far as it goes. I mean, like when when he was like walking away, and Lawrence N's character, Siu Chun, I think it was, sort of like trying to bribe him with like a whole stack of papers, and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. When the time comes, I'll let you through. Don't worry about it. And just completely ignoring the fact that he had just like berated them, and like and that they had like a wanted person among their group, and it was just I found that a bit amusing.
Yeah, he was definitely your typical corrupted character, but also not the brightest bulb in the pack. If he could be confused that the wanted poster had this little mark on it that obviously wasn't there when he looked down. He looks up and then he looks down again. There's a mole there. So, he's not the brightest bulb in the pack. But I thought it was pretty interesting how the guy got the little cut in his forehead from the sword. You knew something was going to be... They focused on that little cut too much when it was made, so you knew it was going to have some kind of implication later in the film. So, yeah.
Yeah, and General Chin Hu is played by Elvis Choi, who's just this... I don't know. I always love seeing him in movies, and he's good at these kind of roles. And I think the character he's like a really powerful sort of individual, and he's the right actor to convey that. It's also important to kind of know that he and Jade are sort like they're sort of an item. Like he at the start of the movie he shows up at the inn, and and it's clear that they have an ongoing relationship of some kind. So
yeah, he is. I think part of the thing that works the character is he is a big guy who's kind of powerful. So there's an aspect of threat to him to give the scene some tension when they're dealing with the wanted poster, but it still works as comedy at the same time. For the scene to really work, you need the tension and you need the comedy to work, and I think that both worked well.
And I think the power plus stupidity is what really makes
yes
it.
Yes.
exactly Great way to put it there. Yeah.
But and I guess getting into some of the topics of the movie, one thing we probably want to talk about is the cannibalism factor. Because that's I don't think that was in the original movie that I recall. I know.
No.
And I think it's hinted at as a possibility in the more recent one, but in this one it's they like her Jade and Dao have a whole system set up where at the start when we first meet her character, she's seducing a man in her quarters, and she's basically saying, do you want me or do you want one of my tunnels? And he says he wants both, and she ends up killing him, throwing him down a chute. He goes into the kitchen, and then he turns into meat that's put into the buns. And so all of the buns here contain human meat. And it's notable, it's interesting. It's also something that Choi Hark had done. I know he's not the director of this movie, but again, it's a movie that whenever Choi Hark's name is on these films, is kind of like a Choi Hark stamp. And there was a movie called We Will Eat You, which I highly recommend. I might have the title wrong, but it's nothing like any of these later films that you get from films that he's produced or directed. But it's a really interesting sort of, I don't know how I would describe it, but it's like a martial arts movie that looks like it was done on a budget, and it kind of has the vibe of like an old school sort of 70s horror movie. Where it involves cannibalism, and it's definitely worth seeing. But it's interesting to see that reemerge as a theme here. I don't know, what did people think of the meat buns?
This movie that was popular in Hong Kong. I don't know if it was around this time as well. It was called like Human Pork Buns. I don't know if that was relevant to the creation of this movie, but it's just one of those. It was a category free movie, but I don't know if that was inspired by this or the other way around. But it was just it was just like the
Do you
first thing
know?
that
Do you
came
know
to
what?
mind
Do
when I
you know
sort
what
of.
year that movie was made?
I don't know. It was around the time of the handover.
I'm finding a movie called The Untold Story, The Eight Immortals Restaurant. Is that possibly it? It says 1993.
Possibly. So it might, I mean that this one came first, and then someone thought I could make a movie about cannibals making meat buns in a modern setting.
Okay,
I feel like there's definitely got to be a Sweeney Todd influence in this, though. The whole thing of the person being killed upstairs, going down a slide to the kitchen down below, and everything. It's just completely Sweeney Todd there. That I feel like that has to be an influence.
I think you're right. I think you're right. In fact, in the commentary track on the Tai Sung version, the guy, I don't know who they had doing the commentary, but he actually says something to that effect, where he
Okay.
because it's very similar. It's a similar type of contraption. But I think we got to do this Untold Story movie at some point now.
Sure.
This just bumped up on my radar, and I really want to see it now.
Yeah, and I've been doing some research in the background. We're Going to Eat You is the name of the
We're
movie.
Going to Eat You. What did I call it?
Yeah.
We Will Eat You. Yeah, We're Going to Eat You is a much better title. It's a little hard to get your hands on. It's an older movie, so it doesn't look so crisp when you watch it, but it's fun. It's a fun movie, and there's some really weird characters. There's a very unusual giant character in the film, and I won't say anything more than that. But it's a real odd movie.
Is this the movie where I'm not going to be when you do it? That I'm not going to be here.
Well, I don't know if we're going to do We're Going to Eat You, but we'll happily do Untold Story when you're not here. If Kenny, do you happen to know, is that a scary movie? Is it more for laughs?
No, it's it's not scary. It's just one of those strange things. It's just quite shocking at the time because, oh my god, cannibalism type of thing. It's yeah, it's just mildly violent, but we watch wuxia movies, so
Yeah, and a lot of times these Category 3 movies, they're not all that, like, by today's standards, they're not so, some of them can be.
There may have been
Some of
nudity because the guy like chops a woman at some point, I think.
Okay.
So maybe that's why it's Category 3, but otherwise it's fairly tame, I think, as far as movies go. Like when we've watched like Chan Che movies and stuff, like a bit of blood from someone being chopped with a meat cleaver is kind of nothing, to be honest.
Yeah. That's a fair point. So I don't know. Why don't we talk about some of the characters and relationships? I think the Jade character is one that we probably want to talk about first, and then we can move into the others. But I don't know. What do people think of Jade as a character and her development over the course of the movie?
She was definitely an enigma, I guess. Like she played the part really well, and I really liked Maggie Chang in this role. I guess she sort of always we've talked about how she was doing sort of wheeling and dealing with Cha while doing the whole wedding thing with Wyan in the room, and just running back and forth and like trying to get the better offer type of thing. And I think by that point, we sort of feel that she's on the side of the protagonist and that maybe she genuinely cares for Wyan, but at the same time, like, it's hard to say because everything she's did like was for the money. Like, I think at the very when she was sort of introduced with the guy who was after her tunnels, and she made the little comment about like, okay, if I show you where the tunnels are, you'll give me 100 taels, but if I kill you, I'll get 500 taels from your body. It's obvious what choice I'd make. So yeah, it sort of really helped to highlight that she is not necessarily a good person, and it helped, and I think it kind of helps story along by keeping some tension between is she good, is she bad, and how it's going to play out for the other protagonists.
Yeah,
I enjoyed.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I enjoyed Jade's character, even though you could tell that she was not a good person per se at the beginning of the movie. She was definitely a flawed person and was definitely willing to seize the opportunity, any opportunity that came. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she's a bad person. I mean, she was living in the desert with a whole bunch of men. I guess she had to do what she had to do to survive. But the course of the movie changing from, you're not exactly sure if she's going to go with the protagonist or going to go with the villain, to definitely drawing that line at the end where you know where she is. I enjoyed her character from the beginning.
Yeah, she's definitely entertaining the entire movie through. I could have felt at any point of the movie she could have swung either way, but she is. I mean, every second she was on screen, I was highly entertained by her, no question.
Yeah, I would say she is the reason to watch this movie. She is the
Mm-hmm.
the strongest character in the film, and Maggie Cheung is just delightful as this character. She just is so charismatic, and it's interesting that you sort of you sort of start out sort of sort of not knowing where she is in a moral sense, but by the end you really kind of come around to sort of seeing things through her eyes, like Dion was saying, where she even kind of hints at that in some of the dialogue at the end, where she's sort of rebuking Huayan for saying you travelers just come and take what you want, and you move on, and she's constantly sort of talking about the difficulties of living in the desert, of sort of this like, I think when he comes to visit her room, he says something to the effect of like, oh, this is a nice quiet room, and she says, oh no, there are no good rooms in the desert, they're all made out of mud. And so I think for her to rise to the position that she did in that inn, she must have some very good survival skills as a character. But also just sort of the scenes where she just adds lightness to like a really sort of tense scene. Like there's the standoff with the roast goat, and she's going around like literally throwing water on people to kind of try to calm them down. I feel like it just always adds like a nice element to the scenes. But and it's also worth noting that in the original Dragon Inn movie, the innkeeper was a male character, and this one they shifted to a female. So I guess that brings us to Huayan and Moyan, who are the sort of the heroes and the couple of this movie. What would you guys think of them?
I actually think that their relationship was fairly boring as far as things go. Like, it was just one of those things where they had lots of tension, but nothing ever really came of it, and then something happened, and she's forced to watch the guy that she likes marry another woman. Uh, it was just kind of odd. Like, maybe it was because Maggie Cheung's character was just so much more sort of vibrant, as it were. Like, I felt like her dynamic with Wyon was more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just the I didn't really feel as much for their romance as I would have done if it was just for Jade and Wyon.
I agree with Kenny. The relationship was kind of boring, but I guess it had to be because they were both focused on a mission, and she did make the promise in front of the Buddha that she would protect the kids and get them through no matter what. So she always seems to play, Brigitte Lin always seems to play the character that is focused on the mission, gets it done, and nothing gets in the way, even if it's down to a romance situation. And she had to let it be or unfold the way it did because she's always loyal to the mission. So yeah, the relationship was boring and kind of really non-existent, except for the fact that, when he arrives, he does say that he wants to hear the flute again, and they kind of leave arm in arm or hand in hand off to her room. I guess it's her room. But yeah, it was a real boring relationship.
Yeah, I felt like, I mean, like we talked about in the wedding scene, they gave the impact of her worrying about what was going on some weight. But it's kind of a threat to the relationship was given some dramatic weight, but we weren't given any moments to really enjoy their relationship, which means that by the end of it, I got to admit, during the final scene, it's like I think I should have been feeling more emotion about, when she died. And I mean, it didn't have the huge impact that I think it should have at that point.
Yeah, I think they had some good shorthand for getting the relationship stuff, like the when they like the music and the scene where he sort of touches her cheek in the inn. I thought that was effective, but I think it's kind of like you're saying, where the more enticing relationship is the one between Jade and Huayan, and so you almost need their relationship to seem less interesting for that one to be like the more exciting one that he's being pulled into. I think where theirs gets more interesting is around the time that Mo-Yan gets injured, and he has that dramatic line. And I think this is one where the subtitles really made a difference in the Tai Sang version versus this one, where what he was saying to her in the Tai Sang version was just that, like, the world is changing, and we don't know if we're going to make this out together alive again like we normally do. And there was just like so much at stake in that conversation, but it was also very tender because he's removing an arrow from her body that she is one of those dog biting arrows that they were foreshadowing the whole movie, and so it's a I feel like that scene they sold really well, and I feel like Bridget Lin really sold her side of the relationship really well with the drinking scene, but yeah, I think I would say they have a more pedestrian type relationship up until that moment. And Tony Leung, his character's kind of has like a playboy quality to him. Do you know what I mean? He seems like a charming man when he first arrives and meet Jade. Number one, they're talking in code a lot of the time. Like they talk about the weather, but they're really talking about, like, it's like really like, the way to get to her the whole thing with her tunnels is through this exchange about the weather. But he's being very playful with her when he compliments her on her name, and he, like, this woman leaps off of the inn roof naked, wrapped in like a flag, and he just sort of effortlessly begins talking, making small talk with her. So I think his character he's not like a typical, like, I'm in love with you and I'm always going to be in love with you type guy. You kind of are left wondering up until the end of the movie where he's going to land in terms of his love for Mo-Yan. But yeah, I don't know. The next group of characters would be the eunuchs. I guess starting with Cha, the official who's been sent to the inn, and he's played by Lao Shun. So what did people think of him? Oh, sorry, we can't hear you, Kenny.
Oh, sorry. I like the stare down scene that he had with Tony Leung's character early on in the movie, when they just meet for the first time, and it's obvious that they know each other's identities already. And maybe it's just because I'm sort of thinking fondly back to the first movie, and there's the whole tension between the main character and one of the eunuchs there as well, and how they sort of like a weird friendship thing going on. But here it was just like purely antagonistic relationship. They were staring down each other with like wide smiles on their faces, and I like the way you pulled that off.
Yeah, I like this. I like the scene when he's officiating the marriage, and he's just and also the fortune telling scene where he reads the palm. I like that one. And he's being so polite, and but undercutting all of it, or underneath all of it, is this this can obviously go in a very violent direction. So and it reminds me a lot of, I think, the character that he's replacing from the original Dragon Inn movie, because there was the head of the Eastern Depot in that film, who was capable of being very pleasant when he needed to be and was good at recruiting, and that there are a few moments where it seems like he's actually trying to recruit Huayan at first. When he's reading his palm and talking about how he's missed out on his career as an official, and maybe that felt like an allusion to the scene in the original Dragon Inn when the official is trying to buy off the hero. But any other thoughts on that guy, or are we? Then we have the villain Chow, played by Donnie Yen, who we don't really see a lot of. He spends most of the movie sitting down on in a sedan chair of some kind, and even during a lot of the fight scenes, he's just sort of he's just looking through his spyglass or examining documents as people are fighting him. So it's not really until the very end that we get to see him unload all of his abilities. What do people think of him as a villain?
I pretty much thought that he was kind of a letdown as a villain. I think they could have gotten anybody to play that character. I don't know. It's just not a strong villainous type for me.
Well, I gotta say, like, he looked the part, but I feel like the writing for him as a villain was a bit lacking. Like, we had like a brief hint of his prowess at the beginning when Mo-Yan was sort of running up the cliffs to fight him, and he's just sort of ignoring her and like watching the other the fight that's going on in the distance before, like, if I go, oh, fine, I'll turn around and sort you out first before sitting back down, and they start to sort of build him up as a menacing character, but then he's not really. He doesn't do anything really until the end of the movie, and that's like a fairly brief fight scene there. I mean, he was kicking ass in that one scene, but then he dies to a guy hiding in sand and with a meat cleaver. I mean, like, I don't know, like, they could have done more with him, and maybe I'm just keep comparing it to the other Dragon Gate Inn movie, right? But the other eunuch was felt imposing, like he was like this looming threat all the time that was just ever present, and he felt like he was capable of like finishing things. And here, like, they sort of hint at it, but then it just sort of falls flat because he dies so quickly at the end.
Yeah, it seems in the previous version, it really felt like they were doomed if they had to fight this guy. If they didn't escape, there was no question they were going to die, which does end up being the case. They have to slip the kids away, but all the main characters kind of have to give up their lives. And in this one, it didn't have the same sense of looming threat in the first place. And, 2 out of the 3 main characters do survive the exchange. So it was a much lighter ending without as much cost to it, definitely. And I think at the ending too, because it does have the tragic element of Mo-Yan dying, but she is the one that's made the less interesting character. And the performance was great, but it's the least cost they could have given to the ending, potentially.
And what do people think of Dao, the guy who does show up at the end and butcher Donnie Yen's leg and arm?
Oh, he's got crazy skills, man, with that cleaver. He was awesome. I loved the scene where they're fighting over the goat and he slices it up, and then the way that it all falls back on the plate, is the bones are completely skinned, and around the bones are the centerpiece, are the little pieces all chopped up, and they're completely in exactly the same square shaped size. It was amazing. I thought his skills were awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that character throughout the whole movie. I mean, like I said, the ending, while not as dramatic as the original, it worked for me just because I actually did really enjoy seeing that character pop out and carve up the bad guy. That just, I don't know. I mean, I get Lady Chow Feng's objection. What she's saying is true, but I didn't care. I really enjoyed it in the moment.
Yeah, I liked him during his non-carving scenes as well. Like he was just sort of depicted as sort of like bumbling, um, timid-ish like character. Yeah, and then he had a nice little bonding scene with the. I don't know why it was there, but he had a bonding scene with the two kids on the rooftop eating fruit, and I was just like, why is this there? I mean, it's nice and all,
was that
but
his character? I think you're right, but I wasn't
Ah,
100%
yeah.
sure if that was him.
yeah. It
Um,
was him. Like, I was thinking he was gonna put out a pork bun for them.
Well,
And I was like,
that-
oh god, no.
that scene is not, I think, part of the theatrical release. I think they added that in as part of the director's cut later.
Okay.
Because that's
'cause
what I was told. I don't know if that's 100%
And I know
correct.
that this version has like some cut scenes, and it felt really out of place there, but it was like a nice little interaction. We get to see a bit more of our character before.
I guess the one thing you can definitely say about this movie is they developed the children more than in the
Yeah, I
original.
was gonna say that. Yeah.
There's actually like because in the original one they're just walking. They're not really doing anything.
There's
In this one, there's a
complete
couple.
ciphers.
Yeah, and in this one, there's like the scene where the girl gives her brother the water, and she doesn't take any for herself, and even the soldiers that are guarding them get a little development in that scene, and then the scene under the moonlight, but which again, I don't think I think you're right. I don't think you really need that scene. I think I guess it's like a moment of tranquility in the movie, but they kind of already get that with the camel scene. Um, so yeah. But one thing that's probably worth getting into a little bit here, if we can navigate our way through it, is the difference in the subtitles and how the version we were watching. We watched two different versions. We had the Hong Kong Legends version and the Tai Sung version, and so the Tai Sung version, which I'm a little more familiar with, is a Cantonese audio track, and the Hong Kong Legends version is a Mandarin audio track, and the music's also different. And I felt that the music really changed a lot of the scenes, at least for me. Like the scene where Huayan and Mo Yan are exchanging glances on the balcony in the inn, and then there's that music playing in the background. On the Tai Sung version, it was a lot more effective because there were in addition to the different music being played with different instruments, there were different sound effects and they were very subtle things, but you could hear his footsteps throughout that scene, and something about hearing his footsteps added something to that scene that I felt was lacking a lot when I saw the other version. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on the subtitles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think just in the Hong Kong Legends version, the subtitles were stripped down and basic a little bit. Like from what we were talking about before the podcast, it sounds like the Tyson version was was more literal with a lot more of the poetic and flowery language stuff, which it's more true to the source material, but at the same time it's harder to understand. But the Hong Kong Legends version is easier to pass, but it's definitely a simplified, stripped down version, so that you don't have to focus on trying to understand the poetry behind it and the words, and then you can just enjoy the movie as it is.
And I think I think that's definitely the case. I don't know. I mean, I still prefer the Tai Sung version, but I do think that I had an easier time understanding what was being said in a lot of the scenes in this version. But I do feel that that there was less emotional weight to a lot of the scenes, especially like because they were in the Cantonese version, the music is like an electronic style music, and it just sort of it added more of a heavier atmosphere to the movie moment than the instruments that they chose for the Mandarin version. At least in my opinion. I don't know. That was my, and I found that throughout the movie.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that I haven't watched the Tyson version, so I don't really have a basis for comparison here. But yeah, I can imagine, yeah, with some subtle changes, the tone of the movie can change quite a lot. Especially like the music was a lot. The music in the Hong Kong Legends version is all mostly like zither music.
Yeah, no, that sounds right.
Yeah, it had a more sort of classical feel to it. Maybe old school would be the word I'd use. It definitely felt more traditional in that sense.
And we're almost running out of time, but we probably do want to at least address the fights. If that, we normally talk at length about fight scenes, and we didn't really get into it except for a little tiny bit. Did anybody have any thoughts on the fight choreography and the style of the fighting in this one?
Well, I've already said that. There's a lot more flair and flipping about in this movie compared to the sort of the more old school ones, and there wasn't really. At the very beginning when we sort of introduced to the Eastern Depot people, like they were like picking each other off horses and stuff. That felt like it has lots of weight to it, and there was more tangible. But then like the fight scenes between the protagonist and then the other characters felt a bit light at times to me. But I don't really think that was much of an issue. It's just the style of that era, I think.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think, a 90s style fight choreography. I actually quite like the 90s style, but it is sort of more feet off the ground. Sometimes there's more the suggestion of something happening than something actually happening. So, like you really see it in the final scene when they're fighting Donnie Yen, and they're fighting at such a length from each other that it doesn't even look like they're in sword striking distance, but they're just sort of alluding to sort of what you're supposed. You know what I mean? It's like more of like an allusion to what's supposed to be happening than what is actually happening. But I like that.
Connect the dots in your own head.
What was that?
No, it's a connect the dots in your head type of thing. I mean, it does work if you consider the fact that people fighting with live weaponries don't like they wouldn't be that close. Like they would keep a bit of distance because a single cut is has a lot of impact in real life as opposed to as it might do in like martial arts movies usually. So the fact that they're playing their swords at a distance, and when there was like one particular scene at the end where Huayan was in the air, he just leapt out of the sand and is about to try and like stab down on Chow. And Chow's just like waving his sword around and like flailing like a fish on land, trying to avoid it, which is quite amusing. And but yeah, it makes sense. Like if someone's about to like try and strike you from above, you're gonna do whatever you can to make sure they can't get the clothes on you, right?
And I mean, it does have some top-notch action directors. You have like Ching Sui Tung is one of the directors, one of the action directors, and Yuan Bun. So I mean, it's I liked the action choreography. I just think it's definitely what I would file as sort of more of the sort of high flying type martial arts action. And so it doesn't necessarily. It's not like a Bruce Lee type movie for sure. But
I did want to comment about the some of the special effects, I guess, for the projectiles. That was a bit weird.
Oh, the CG effect on the phoenix tail arrow when it curved through the air.
No, and just like some of the I guess what they were daggers or darts that Jade was using. The like slivers of metal that she threw at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like so the needles that Unix was using as well, with when the sort of in flight animation they used for that was a little bit weird.
They, I know they
Stood
did
out to
use
me a little
CG
bit.
for a bit of the movie. I don't know if it applied to the needles, but they definitely used it on the arrows at the start. Um,
Yeah.
I quite liked the dog biting arrows because they looked really mean. Like
Oh yeah,
they had the spikes on them, like the X-shaped spikes that shot out once they went inside you, and I thought it was effective by the time Mo Yan got hit with one because you really knew what they did. And I liked the beginning. It sort of starts with the they have like this black arrow troop in the Mandarin version they call them the Black Flag troop, but there was a training sequence with them sort of demonstrating their weapons engineering, and I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so we've been going at it for an hour and 10 minutes, so I'm going to end it here. Uh, we'll be back next week, I believe. What are we watching the tournament next week? Is that our movie, or are we not 100% sure on that one yet?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think it's the tournament.
Okay, I think we're very likely doing the tournament next week, and I will put a confirmation up on social media about that, and me and Adam will be getting back on our Return to Condor Heroes thing. Hopefully around Sunday or in the coming days. I don't know what our exact schedule is yet, and I'm sure we got plenty of other stuff coming down the pike. So. We will see you next Friday with another martial arts movie, and we'll see you then. All right. So one thing I forgot to mention that I was trying to get everybody to remind me to mention was Bridget Lynn was injured during the filming of this movie, and she apparently got struck by an arrow. So I read, and had to go in for surgery. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point that I should have mentioned at the start of the episode.